Something that's not on the log. We had an arrest that was made yesterday. This was an investigation that began on August 30th. We had a 14-year-old girl that disclosed that a older man had touched her. There had been some basically inappropriate touching, I guess I'll just phrase it that way. That she had reported that in her home state of Minnesota, and then that was reported or turned over to the police department, and that was really what kicked off, obviously, our investigation. So what they found is our victim, this has happened over the last probably 6 years or so. She would come to visit relatives in Sioux Falls, and this person or suspect is a neighbor of those relatives, and then she would go over there and I guess I'm not sure exactly what would take place, but that's when that inappropriate touching would happen. And there was a couple of times he exposed himself to her as well. There was a warrant that was issued yesterday for 4 counts, or 2 counts of sexual contact with a child under 16, indecent exposure involving a child, and sexual exploitation of a minor. All those are felony charges. The warrant carries a $100,000 cash bond. The suspect was arrested yesterday. I think it was, I didn't hear of any issues. The sheriff's office arrested him. There is an affidavit on file that has some of the details as well, but that's basically it. The one thing that we want to really bring to the attention is there's really a potential for more victims out there. And I don't know that we've learned of any. We've talked with a couple of people, but there is certainly a chance that this may have been going on for quite a long time, and there could be other victims out there as well. So just kind of want people to know if they have children, whether they're, I guess, children at the time, they may be adults now, but otherwise if they have other children that make any type of comments, we'd like them to call the police department and work with a detective, and then we can kind of proceed from there.
You're talking like separate cases?
Other cases, right, yeah. I mean, we know that this one person was victimized, and there certainly is a chance that there could be other kids that were victimized as well.
But you're talking just if somebody knows about something, to say something, give you guys a call.
Yeah, if anybody basically if anybody has information that this man touched anybody inappropriate or did anything inappropriate with any kids, we'd want them to call police, and then we can investigate it from there.
And so the person from Minnesota, so that you said there was relatives in Sioux Falls that they visit?
Right.
And that's where it took place?
Yep. It was, so the relatives live in the same neighborhood that the suspect lives in.
Oh, gotcha.
And I think it might have been across the street, actually, but
I'm trying to figure out the Minnesota part of it.
that's where the victim is from.
Okay.
The victim is from Minnesota and then would come to Sioux Falls on different occasions to visit relatives that lived here, and then our suspect lived either across the street or just right nearby.
Gotcha.
Yep, his last name is Wright, W-R-I-G-H-T. First is George, G-E-O-R-G-E. Middle is Edward, E-D-W-A-R-D, and he's 75 from Sioux Falls.
Does he have a history of sexual offenses?
I can't go into criminal history. That's a few different things, but the state's attorney's office doesn't want us talking about prior history, and then there's also state law that covers criminal history. So you'd have to do a background basically to find that stuff out.
Do you have a location where he was arrested at?
I don't. Let me. I'm guessing it was at his home, but let me just double check. It was actually at a business near 10th and Cliff where they found him.
Do you have a location where the incidents
It took place at his home in the 3100 block of East 13th Street. The victim is now 14.
But there's 2 counts under the age of 16.
2 counts under the age of 16, that's correct, yep.
And you said this has been going on for like 6 years?
We believe it's happened, yeah, at least with this particular victim. She disclosed that it started probably when she was about 8 years old. So I'd say that's kind of a rough time frame over the last 8 years. And certainly, I mean, like I said, we could have other victims, so it may have gone on longer than that. This is just that time frame that involves this particular victim.
And what time was he arrested yesterday?
Yesterday afternoon, it was around 3:30 p.m. Anything else on that one? Okay. On the log, the aggravated assaults, we had quite a few people were threatened with knives, no injuries from any of those. One guy was hit, like basically pistol whipped with a gun. He had a name, but said he kind of knew the guy. We haven't found him yet, but didn't have any serious injuries from that. And had another guy that was driving near 18th Street and Cleveland Avenue. This was yesterday about 1 o'clock. As he was pulling into a business, he heard a noise, and then one of his windows basically shattered. And he pulled in there and stopped, and then ended up finding a couple of other windows had been shot that had holes that they thought were either a BB or a pellet gun. And then I think the side of his truck was damaged as well, but no injuries, no suspects on that. Nothing big from the 2 assaults that are listed. The burglary, one of them was a house that was entered. We had a garage that was entered, a storage unit. We did have one, no arrests were made. This was a little bit different, but we had a woman that was in the hallway of her apartment. This was in the 600 block of South Cleveland Avenue. This was just before 5 p.m. She, let's see here. This started, she was walking down the hallway outside the apartment to go outside, and there was a guy that came running up the stairs. She said she knows his name, she recognizes him, and he started yelling that she owed him money. He then had some pepper spray and sprayed it in her face. She ran back to her apartment. He ended up forcing his way inside and was yelling about the money, ended up taking her cell phone, and then he took off. So she did not have any serious injuries from the pepper spray. We've got some information to follow up on, but we weren't able to find him, so no arrests were made. Let's see, the burglary in progress, that was a guy that was in a garage. The disorderly subjects, we had a couple that involved juveniles, a couple of them that were stalking reports. The embezzlement was a car that was loaned out. The family offenses were more reports, frauds, ID thefts, and credit cards. The indecent exposure, that was a guy that was basically walking around naked yesterday. That was around 10th and Summit Avenue about 12:30. Initially, somebody saw him laying naked on the tailgate of a pickup, and then other people saw him walking around. When officers got there, he had some type of shirt that was wrapped around his waist, so part of him was concealed, but he was arrested for public indecency. Larcenies, a few unlocked cars, some license plates, shopliftings, nothing big out of those. Nothing big, no big quantities on the narcotics. The sex offenses, both of those are reports. Simple assaults were simple assaults and domestics. And the vandalisms were a lot of windows, house windows, car windows, building windows, but nothing big, nothing concentrated in one area. And that's all I have, unless you guys have anything. Okay, thanks.